Michael Miller. Our guest today is Dr. William Petrie from the Miami-Dade County Mosquito Control Division.
Correct. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting us again.
So we're going to show in a couple of minutes some mosquitoes that you brought with you.
Yeah.
You promised not to let them loose.
No, there's none getting loose in here today.
So people want to know right off the bat, why do I think as though the mosquitoes like me more than my wife or my children? Is there something about us individually that would cause mosquitoes to be attracted to
that's
us?
a long debated question. Are some people or some blood types more attractive to mosquitoes than others, or men and women? That's an old debate. It's not clear, Michael, why mosquitoes do seem to prefer to bite some people rather than others. I mean, you've noticed that. You can see that yourself. We don't know exactly why. It's very probably not to do with blood type. It's more to do with scent. That's what's attractive.
And the mosquitoes have been around a long time. Probably more than people with two legs.
So we think maybe 100 million years, possibly. We know for sure we have actual fossils embedded in amber. Mosquitoes is a Culex mosquito, same as these in here, embedded in amber, which is about 25 million years old, which looks exactly the same as the ones today.
So when you study mosquitoes, as you do all the time, when you think about the lifespan of the universe, how do you feel as this tiny little part of this gigantic entity?
Insignificant, Michael, is the...
It's like, okay, so you're 50 years old. Okay, not 50 million, but 50.
Right.
So mosquitoes, the season, I think there's a time in which there's more mosquitoes than less, but it's always an issue.
Yeah,
just some more than others.
Summer months is hotter and wetter, so yes, there are more mosquitoes and they can reproduce more quickly in the higher temperatures. But, and this is one of the reasons I brought these today, that's a myth that people think there are no mosquitoes in the winter months. That's just not the case.
So why don't we get up on the screen some of the things we have? Oh, okay, there we go.
Okay, so this here is a jar with mosquito larvae, immature mosquito. They hang upside down, quite kind of odd. They hang upside down and they breathe from that siphon. You can see a little pointed siphon.
It's like a snorkel.
It's a snorkel. That's
Amazing.
Exactly what it is. It's a snorkel. I'm glad you said that. And at the top of that snorkel, it's waterproofed so that it goes through the water so it can breathe.
That's amazing.
And the reason I brought these today, Michael, two reasons. One is that these are a Culex mosquito that actually have two different types of Culex in here that we get in the winter months, what we call the winter months.
It's going to be 85 today.
It's going to be 85, yeah. So this is actually the most common type in the winter months, in the off season. So it is not the case that we have like up north, for example, a period where there are no mosquitoes. The other reason I brought these in this jar was that these were collected. We collected these last week from a site where the fire department had been active. They were very busy putting out a fire and a lot of water was used. So I want to make the point that these mosquitoes, especially this type, they're opportunists. They will breed anywhere. They'll breed anywhere they can. And this was foul water. This was nasty water.
So right now there's not a lot of rain out there, right? But so people are watering their yards more and more and more and more and more.
Yep.
What's some advice concerning that? Is that obviously we can't control the natural rain, but we can control the sprinklers. Is there some point at which you say, this is how you could try to reduce the amount of mosquitoes that will have places?
Absolutely, and it's more effective than you might think, and that is what's called source reduction. That's part of the drain and cover model for the county. You can just remove standing water from your yard once a week, twice a week. That's enough. Just tip over buckets and plant pots, plant saucers, anything that can hold water, and it doesn't need to be much water.
So in this particular case, that was all dirty water.
Yeah,
but they're still, they've been around for tens of millions of years, and they still figured out how to do it.
This particular mosquito will breed in filthy water, foul water, or clean water. It's an opportunist. So it saw this opportunity there at the site.
And how old are these guys? What do you call these?
These are mosquito larvae. So we can see with, can we see with these? That there are 4 stages. That didn't work very well, but there are four stages from egg to larva and then a pupa, and then it changes into the adult. These are when do we collect these? Thursday last week. Yeah, so these are just a few days old.
And when will they be? When will they be able to fly?
So some have already emerged from here. I decided not to bring them in, Michael, just in case they escaped from the cage. But some of these brothers and sisters have already emerged yesterday, over the weekend. So these will emerge in the next couple of days.
So, and how long will they live?
As adults?
Yes.
A very good question, Michael. It's a couple of weeks, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
About a year ago, I asked you a very poignant question, and I've repeated it many, many times when I said, what's the purpose of a mosquito? And you said, to eat and to reproduce. Michael, what's your purpose? And I've used that over and over, and certainly, all right, that I've used that on this higher spiritual level, and it certainly helped be a guiding light, because these have a purpose, and and as far as their DNA, their job is to make more mosquitoes. What are some benefits, if there are, to having mosquitoes in society?
I don't know if I could talk about benefits, but I think how we have to look at it from a biological point of view, or an ecological point of view, is that these creatures, as you say, have been around for a very long time, far longer than humans. These creatures have adapted to make a living in a particular way. Now, we don't like that particular way because they come and take our blood and leave a little painful bite at the same time. But it's an adaptation to make eggs and to reproduce. That's really how you need to look at it biologically. And so whether that's any use to us or any use to anyone else.
Yeah, but if you like little birds around your house, all right, they may be there to eat the mosquitoes.
Well, mosquitoes do form food supply for many creatures in the water and in the air.
Can we take a look at this guy right up here?
Yes.
Andres, I'm sorry. Now, what is this guy?
So this may be a bit difficult to see what this is, but it's an egg raft. And there are 2 strategies that mosquitoes use to lay their eggs. They can either lay them singly, individual eggs, which can sit there and last for months and years.
Say it again, the eggs could last for months or years. And here's some right here. Right?
So I don't know if we can show these. No, I'll hold on. Do this first. So they can lay them individually, or they can lay them in what's called a raft, and that's what this is here.
But that's not in water. That's and dry.
Well, we've put it on a piece of filter paper here, damp, but that's laid directly onto the water, and it's a raft shape. It's like a lifeboat, and it floats. You can't dunk it. And the mosquitoes hatch very quickly from this raft that we're looking at, and they drop straight into the water. These other eggs, the individual laid ones, they can sit like that for months and years. So we have, just for the audience, it's like 2 inches long, 2.5, 3 inches long by 1.5 inches wide, and it's filled with these little black spots, which are eggs. There you go, Michael.
Oh my goodness.
So those are individual eggs, little tiny dots.
How many would you say are
there are a few thousand on there.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. Certainly several hundreds.
And these are, I'm starting to itch, but I know it's not from that. And these could get activated by, if what happened?
Just by flooding.
They get wet and they get activated.
Yep.
They go from this dry place.
Yeah.
All right. And how long does it take after they get wet before they start that life cycle? I know that's part of the cycle. But.
Well, almost immediately, a day or two, and then give them 5 days to a week.
Oh, here we can show it on that screen, I think. Which one? Where should we show it? Right over here?
Yeah. Just swap it.
Yep.
So, oh, there we go. This one here.
There we go.
Okay, so all those, perhaps not very clear, but all those black marks there are mosquito eggs, the little tiny dots.
And there's several thousand on this
I would
piece.
say a couple of thousand, certainly several hundred. Once you start teasing them out, so the strategy there is that the mosquito female, she lays individual eggs. They can withstand drying out. They can withstand being dried for a very long time.
So how can you tell how old these eggs are? I mean, if they were 5 years old, would you be able to tell?
No. I know how old these are because we reared these in the laboratory. But the eggs on the raft that we were looking at earlier on, there you go, the raft there, those eggs cannot withstand drying out. They're not designed to be, they don't have a complicated eggshell like these have.
Is that a different species?
Yes, this is Aedes aegypti, the dengue mosquito, Zika mosquito.
Okay.
And these are culex. The raft is a culex.
Well, now you brought up the different types of mosquitoes. Are all mosquitoes carriers of diseases?
So we have some questions here about myths, debunking myths, and what is true and what's not true. And I was actually going to ask you the questions, Michael, because I think you've know so much about mosquitoes now. But no, the fact is that not all mosquitoes do carry diseases.
And so the effect that it has for most people, it's an annoyance. They spin around our head, they land on us, they bite us.
Yes.
All right. And we slap them, maybe, and then we squish them into our body.
So they are an annoyance, they are a nuisance, and if you have high numbers, it becomes more than a nuisance. So yeah, the bites are irritating, and you can be scratched and get infected. But here in southern Florida, and Miami certainly, we do have quite a few disease carriers. Although, as you said, not all mosquitoes carry.
It's been a while since we've seen the health department or your department issue a warning, if I remember right, about some of the diseases. Well, why don't you tell us some of the diseases that they carry, and at the last time some of those impacted us here in South Florida?
Zika was the big story here, of course, in 2016, which is Aedes aegypti, the eggs of this one here. The most common mosquito-borne disease we have is dengue, which is introduced from overseas. It comes in, people bring in dengue, not mosquitoes. But what we're able to do is control the numbers to keep down any local transmission. These culex mosquitoes, the raft that we saw, those can carry West Nile virus. And that is already in the United States, so it doesn't have to be introduced.
So when it is in the United States, is that being carried by humans, and then they get bit, and the mosquito carries it to the next person?
No, the West Nile one is a complicated transmission one. It's really, the host is birds. These mosquitoes feed on birds, but they also feed on us. So that's a fairly complicated.
Does the West Nile virus kill birds?
It does some, yes.
But it's not. Is it an absolute or not? I mean,
no, it's not an absolute. But in fact, it's a fair point, Michael, because people can use dead birds, findings of dead birds, to indicate that there may be a West Nile problem or some type of encephalitis.
So if somebody had birds that died, and they were curious as to whether it had West Nile virus, what would they do?
I would think possibly Fish and Wildlife, but I don't know for sure who would check that. But I would advise people not to mess with it. Put gloves on and put it in a bag if you want to get it examined. And people have done this. We have done this. Particular birds are affected.
I'm familiar with Newcastle, how it kills chickens, and how the U.S. government years ago would go and what's the word?
Cull is what they usually say.
Yes, they do that for chickens, and if you had birds in it, they would come in and terminate them to prevent that disease from getting on to the rest of the chickens. But let's talk about Zika when it was on. That was 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago at this point. I remember watching those reports, and the department would come back, okay, we have on Miami Beach, this is where it is, it's in Wynwood, but not 4 miles away. How is it that you can predict and know where that is, and that people 5 miles away don't seem to be at all concerned about it?
The mosquito that transmits Zika for example, that mosquito does not travel far. In fact, it's notorious for traveling on only a very short distance. If it doesn't need to leave your backyard, it won't leave your backyard.
And what about wind? Doesn't the wind carry them away?
Yes, but if they can avoid the wind. There are other mosquitoes which use the wind. They will come up into the wind and then be transported. But the mosquito that was transmitting Zika here, it doesn't travel very far. It's very, very localized, very isolated. One of the few things that makes it easier for control specialists to deal with.
So let's talk about when I was a kid, we'd go out and we'd play in the yard. There'd be hundreds of dragonflies. We used to run around the yard trying to catch them. What do the dragonflies eat?
Okay, so the dragonflies will eat flying mosquitoes. Yes, dragonflies are wonderful predators if you watch them. Incredible flyers, and they grab the mosquito with the two front legs and just eat it in the air, and off they go. It's not a very big meal for most dragonflies.
What do they eat other than mosquitoes?
Any insects that they can take on the wing. And the dragonflies is a big insect, remember. So,
I used to try to catch them like this.
Yeah, very difficult to catch dragonflies.
So what is at the end of that dragonfly? Is there like a little pointer, like a scorpion, or what is that? Or is just...
No, it's an egg-laying device on the female and the other on the male. But there's no sting or anything like that.
Okay, so the thing that we're going to debunk, myths. Which mosquito, male or female mosquito, bites?
Okay, so only the female mosquito bites. Male mosquitoes do not bite. In fact, they cannot bite. They don't have a sharp needle. They have like a straw for sucking sugar.
So are we to assume that if one's flying around my head, that's a female?
That's a good question too, because I would have a few years ago I would have said yes, that's going to be a female. There's no point in males flying around you. But the Zika mosquito, again, this one, the Zika, dengue, chikungunya, the males do fly around. The males will come around. I noticed this, and it took me a while to realize that they were all males. And the thinking is that they're looking for females.
So tell us about the department and how you track mosquitoes throughout the county.
So we have the surveillance section that we have now that we've built up over the past 5-6 years is now excellent. We have more than 300 mosquito traps, specialized devices for catching flying mosquitoes. They put those out. They're deployed once a week. The catch is brought back in the next day, and then we have another team of lab techs who are skilled at identifying those mosquitoes into the different species. And that's key.
And with your traps, for instance, the ones you have down south versus the ones up north, are there some similarities in the kind that are caught, or are there mosquitoes that are
differences? Yeah, very much so.
And you've been with the department how long?
Almost 6 years now.
So if somebody brought you two traps, one from one end of the county, one from the other, could you tell by your experience, oh, I think this one's from up north?
I'd probably have to ask the lab techs.
But they know. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And there's an old saying, you don't have to drink the whole bowl of soup in order to know what it tastes like. And I assume that's part of that. But let's ask, so you have a department, you have your lab techs that are in there. I've met some of the nice young ladies from there. And I know they make everybody else's job easier and look simple, and I know it's involved.
That's a very skilled job identifying the mosquitoes that are brought in.
And they do that under a microscope.
Yeah, yes.
And thank goodness for mosquitoes and great ladies. So, and back to debunking myths. What causes human skin to react to a mosquito bite and it gets swollen and red and itchy?
So what that is caused by really is when the female mosquito bites you, she inserts her needle into your skin, she very quickly injects a small amount of her own saliva. And from the mosquito's perspective, what that is for is to inject a tiny amount of analgesic. You wouldn't think so, would you, to stop the pain? and also an anticoagulant device to make the blood flow faster. Not for very long, but just to make it flow.
From the time they land until they get their meal, which is going to feed their babies, all right, or the eggs. How long are they on biting?
Few seconds, but again, and this is another good example, extremes. There's a mosquito that breeds in the Everglades in the mangrove swamps, which comes out in millions, literally millions. When it blood feeds, it will just land on you and just sit there, and you can flick it. It will just sit there for about 3 seconds. The Zika mosquito does not do that. She is very skittish. Will bite. As soon as you move, she's going to move again and fly around here,
So they can inject and suck some blood out in
a very short space
Right.
of time.
So by the time we might feel it, if you don't see it or hear it,
Yeah,
they're done their business and on the way out.
yeah. So the saliva that she injects is, for her benefit, is to make the blood flow faster. But it does cause irritation to most people. That's what causes that little irritation as soon as they leave.
So and to your point about if we scratch it, that can cause the skin to open up again,
Yeah.
and you make yourself susceptible
Yeah.
to other stuff.
Yeah, so even if the mosquito is not a disease carrier per se, if you scratch it, as you say, you can open yourself up to other infections.
And when you see sometimes, it's been a while where kids got all these bites on them, you know that's going to be a problem because they're going to be itching like this.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be spreading it, the dirt on the hands, it's going to go
Yeah.
in there. So how do mosquitoes know when there's other mosquitoes nearby? Do they make a noise?
Yeah,
Is it the flapping of the wings, or do they chirp to each other?
Actually,
here.
that whole thing about the auditory is now being used to identify mosquitoes remotely. It's the wing beats. It's the wings produce the frequency produces a particular sound, and the different species have a different identifiable sound. So for example, male mosquitoes looking for females are listening. They're hearing. They're listening to that sound.
We tend to do things like that.
And then the males then rush into a swarm of females to.
And can they?
reproduce.
Do they? Is there interbreeding between species?
Typically no. Typically not. But if you got two subspecies that possibly could breed.
Do the mosquitoes, when they're flying around doing their business, do the species actually get together? So when they're free, not in a trap.
Well, there are two different kinds of culex in there. So getting together was more of an opportunist thing that
Yeah.
there was water there. It's dry around about. So
when they hatch, so there's a couple that are going to be in there. Would they naturally stay in that group, or do they go find other people that other?
no, they wouldn't. They wouldn't bother. They're just mainly concerned about feeding.
So
They're not social in that aspect. In the field, however, the larvae will gather over here, and the pupae, which is the next stage, they will separate. I just recalled that when you asked me.
So we used to have these plants. For the life of me, it escapes me. They're sort of thorn and the big leaves, and they have a big bucket in the middle where the water goes in.
The bromeliads.
Yes, bromeliads. That's a breeding ground.
Yes,
for
they
mosquitoes.
are, and they're unfortunately, or regrettably, I should say, they're the prime breeding site or a very good breeding site for the Zika mosquito, the dengue mosquito. Some mosquitoes prefer to lay their eggs in containers, and that's the strategy of individual eggs. Can be laid in a container of any kind, waiting for rainfall, waiting for rain to come. So the other strategy is that they're laid directly onto the water, so they don't need to wait for rain.
So let's say they lay it in a bromeliad.
Yeah.
There's water in there. How long is it until they're out? Till they're hatched and fly away?
From the time the eggs are laid
Yep.
until a week.
And they hold water for a while in there.
Yeah, and when it's really hot, that could be quicker, 5 days.
Tell us about mosquitoes in where it's a lot cooler, up north someplace.
So people think of, cold places as not having mosquitoes. Of course, that's not true. Mosquitoes are almost all over the world. The United Kingdom has 60 species of mosquitoes, which is more than Miami-Dade.
Wow.
But you never see them. You wouldn't know it. However, if you go up to northern Canada, up to Alaska, the numbers of mosquitoes there are just horrendous. They're incredible. They come off in billions and billions. They're so numerous and so aggressive that they even have to put netting over the dogs.
We thought we were special down here in South Florida, but we're not. Right?
Well, I mean, for them, it only lasts about 2 months, maybe 3 months.
So,
But they do come off in the northern latitudes. Yes, you do get mosquitoes.
so there's a lot of people think when it's nighttime, there are more mosquitoes that are flying around. Is that accurate?
Yes. So I'm hedging here
Yeah.
because what's the word? Crepuscular is the correct term. Dawn and dusk. The mosquitoes are mainly active at dawn and dusk. But during the night, yes, through the night. This one here, again, back to this Culex. Reason it's called the southern house mosquito is it likes to come indoors and it will wait till about 2 o'clock in the morning when you're asleep, and then it will come whining in your ear to feed then. But just to finish your question, again, back to the Zika mosquito, no, it's active during the day. It's different from most of them.
So there's also a story about if a mosquito gets close enough and they can smell your breath, and everybody has a slightly different breath. Not everybody, a lot of people. What's the response to a mosquito to people's breaths?
The mosquitoes use your exhalation, your breathing. They use that as one of the cues to zoom in on you. They are detecting the carbon dioxide, the CO2 that you breathe out. I mean, they're detecting your temperature as well.
Much like snakes do.
They have various different detection devices to find out where you are. I mean, they have good eyesight, and then they can scent. They can detect the scent as well, and that's what they use when they home in. So they use the carbon dioxide comes off as what they call a plume, so that over here is a very low concentration. So they follow the concentration
Until they get to the source.
Yeah.
Let's talk about mosquitoes and animals. When mosquitoes go on all type of animals, correct?
Yes. Okay, so there are 3,500 different kinds of mosquitoes, at least, maybe 4,000. So I am generalizing.
So what do people do? We don't have dogs anymore, but we have outside cats.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes land on the cats and try to bite them, correct?
The mosquitoes are known to feed on just about anything. I mean, I was surprised last year we saw a video of mosquitoes feeding on earthworms. No, I wouldn't have got that one. They do feed on snakes and reptiles around the eye. Some mosquitoes, back to the Zika mosquito, only feeds on humans.
So if you have a dog and you let him outside, he plays around in the yard, and you
Yeah.
bring him back in the house and he jumps on the bed and couch and everything.
Yeah.
He's bringing in stuff from the outside, dirt and maybe whatever might be in this. What do we do?
The mosquitoes are probably not coming in on the dog in the first place. Animals are actually quite good at preventing the mosquitoes from biting them. Birds, you notice, will fluff up their feathers. Herons and egrets, you'll see them doing that quite a lot when they get bothered by mosquitoes. Most animals just move. And some, their fur is too dense for the mosquitoes to really bother them.
So at some of the big box stores, they sell these citronella candles, right? How's that work?
They're. I need to watch what I'm saying because I don't have shares in citronella, but they're okay. They are not 100% effective. There's not really anything that is, but they will put off mosquitoes to some extent.
Because there's something in the candle itself.
Yeah, it's the scent
that the mosquitoes don't like.
Yeah, it's the scent of the citronella itself they don't like.
So and that's pretty effective because I see people sometimes put them on when they're outside on poles and it keeps them away.
Yeah. Again, Michael, they're more effective against some types of mosquitoes than others.
So the folks that are down in, God bless them, in the Redlands and the Homestead area, I'm working on the nurseries,
Mhm.
and the ground's always wet, pretty much, and the trees are dripping. What's the best way for them to try to protect themselves?
They got to cover with clothing and or insect repellent is essentially the best way. And you can spray the repellent on the clothing, remember. You don't have to put it directly onto your skin. One good way is to spray a hat. And mosquitoes tend not to like that.
And because that's in a bigger place, and they can. How far
Yeah.
away can mosquitoes smell the spray or the citronella candles?
Probably citronella candles, I'm not quite sure, but CO2 plume, carbon dioxide plume, looking at cows and horses, yeah, definitely several feet, 20, 30, 40, 50 feet, yeah. And they zoom in like so.
So, so right now we're at the beginning of March. I know that we'll start seeing an increase at some point or another.
Mhm.
What should a homeowner do to try to control the best we can the mosquitoes on their property?
I think the drain and cover is sound. It's a good formula to drain standing water in your yard. It sounds simple enough, but you will prevent the mosquito that really causes the most nuisance and carries disease, or can carry disease as well. So that's the most important thing.
So if you have outside animals, you got to empty that water thing
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
And try to dump it in a different place so the ground's not completely soaking
Yeah, I
wet.
mean, it's not as difficult as you might think once you get used to doing it as a routine. Plant saucers, tires, discarded tires are a real source.
As we get down to the end, we have 2 minutes left. Tell us why you chose to spend a career in the mosquito arena.
Because I had graduated university. I was looking to study some biological evolution and ecology is what I was looking to study. And I was, to answer your question, I was offered a job to work on mosquitoes in the Cayman Islands, which is very, very far from Scotland, where I was. So I said yes, and that's...
Sometimes stuff happens like that.
Sometimes stuff happens.
And if somebody wanted to find out more about mosquitoes, they could go to the website, the Miami-Dade.gov.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And they can look around. They can find some photographs that are up
yes,
there
and
things
control
that they can do.
techniques and some of the research work and so on.
And if somebody has a mosquito issue, meaning they feel as though there are a lot of mosquitoes in the
Yeah.
neighborhood, what should they do?
Call 311. It's a system that I came here and found here. I was not familiar with that kind of system, but it's excellent. It works really well. Residents call 311. We get the message and we deal with it within 24 hours.
That's great.
So that works.
All right, so
Yeah.
drain and cover,
Yeah.
right? And walk around your property, say, if I was a mosquito, where would I go? All right, and know that they can be in a little thing of
Yeah.
water, or they can even do stuff that's dry nearby.
Yes.
All right, and just for clarity, if you have an outside pond, what should
Mosquito fish.
Mosquito.
We love mosquito fish. Now, you can't always put mosquito fish in your pond or in your fountain or whatever, but wherever possible, if you can use mosquito fish, they're great. We love mosquito fish.
And nature made it.
It's
They
a
love
natural
mosquitoes.
predator that belongs here. It's a Miami native, and they love to eat mosquitoes, and they're also very tough little fish. Freshwater, saltwater, so they're a definite asset. We use them whenever we can.
So we're going to wrap up. Dr. William Petrie, thank you so much,
Michael,
for,
thank
for
you
being
very
here
much.
and for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Folks, take care of yourselves, and thanks for joining us.